Okay, so hey guys, and welcome back to another Axel 72 video, and in today's video I'm going to be giving my prediction for the George Kambosos Jr. versus Richardson Hitchins fight. And so if you are new around here and you haven't yet subscribed, please do so, like video if you do indeed like the video, and let's get straight into this. So this is the first defense of Richardson Hitchins' IBF World Super Lightweight title, in which he picked up last time out by beating Liam Paro from what I believe to be, from memory, a split decision. It was a fight in which he did fight really well. I think he definitely fought to a game plan, which was a smart game plan, and I think he stayed disciplined and he made Paro overcommit a lot and really kind of punished him for just continually making him reach, and didn't do anything too crazy, Hitchins, but it was more than enough to be able to beat Paro, who was trying to be more aggressive, but he just couldn't handle the distance of Hitchins, and it just wasn't saying how good of a game plan Paro thought to beat Matthias. He just didn't come with the best of game plans, and Hitchins just knew what he had to do to be able to outbox him, and it was definitely a style in which suited him, and perhaps he went the easiest route to go for a world title. I mean, you look at the other champions. I mean, we've just seen, Lomachenko leave as a champion. That was actually in the lightweight division. But we've just seen Muratalo become champion. We've seen a few names kind of in and around the lightweight and the super lightweight division. When you look at the names, Shakur Stevenson, Javonte Davis, other names as well. Matias, Puello, there's Lopez, there's lots of different names in and around, and I feel like Hitchins definitely chose the easiest option for himself to get a world title. I think that Paro was the least proven. Yes, he'd beaten Matthias, and I mean, if you look at some of his other fights, he'd gotten some other good wins in his time as well. But like I say, I think for his style, it was the best suited for his style, and I mean, before that, Hitchins had had a very tough fight against Lemos, and that was a fight in which realistically Lemos shouldn't have been at his level if he was to move on to go on to a world title fight, and it was just a fight that really didn't suit him at all, and Lemos was just way too bullish for him, and arguably Hitchins did well to be able to get a win out of it, let alone a unanimous decision win. So for that fight, I was skeptical, even the Paro fight, but like I say, the Paro fight was definitely stylistically a fight in which made sense for him. Does that mean that Hitchins is a really strong champion? I'm not entirely sure. I definitely think if he is to try and go on for unifications, he could find himself becoming a bit stuck when he goes up against some other top guys. But for the moment, I think this is a good first defense against Kambosos, who is, of course, a very big name. He's not on the best of runs himself. I mean, his recent form has been very poor. You kind of have to argue if he's actually deserving of a world title shot. I mean, it's an easy fight for Matchroom to make this one, but I just don't think the fans are really behind him getting another world title shot and are really, eager to see it. I don't even think the Australian fans are behind him getting a world title shot. I don't even think the Australian fans really rate him that much. And I mean, quite often the OUS fans are really behind their fighters. I mean, we're seeing them get really behind Jaya Patara at the moment. They were really behind Tim Zhu, and it's just seemingly not kind of the same with Kambosos. I don't know if it's his attitude and his arrogance, or if it's just, like I said, the fact that he's getting given these opportunities without seemingly kind of deserving them. I mean, obviously, you go back through his record, and his last fight was against Jake Wiley as a bit of a comeback type fight, and that was Jake Wiley coming in on, from what I believe was a week's notice, and Wiley put on a really good effort. He not hurt Kambosos, but definitely took him into some deep waters and made it difficult for him throughout the rounds, and definitely caught Kambosos with a few nice shots that wasn't exactly nice to see for the fans of Kambosos, and not really wanting him to, that type of punishment you wanted him to be taken before you put him into a world title fight. You don't see that performance against Wiley and go, oh yeah, that guy's ready for a world title. It's just not realistically how it worked. I mean, it was so good from Wiley that even Matchroom gave him a contract seemingly. So again, it was interesting to see that that wasn't a good performance. And then before that, he just got stopped versus Lomachenko, which was a brutal stoppage where Lomachenko, I believe that was his last fight, and now obviously he's retired, and that he just completely dominated that fight and just showed another skill level that he was another skill level above. Before that, he had the fight versus Maxi Hughes, which everybody believes that Maxi Hughes did enough to be able to win, and of course he didn't get the nod, and that was, just unfortunate and bad judging. And then before that, he had the two fights versus Haney, which weren't bad performances, but were two losses nonetheless. And he just didn't do enough to be able to keep up with the really sharp Haney. And then, of course, he went on before that to fight Teofimo Lopez and win. Obviously, he has that bigger name on the record in beating Teofimo Lopez, so he definitely has a bigger name on the resume than that of Hitchins, but it was a long time ago now. You kind of look at it and you go through the resume, like I say, of the last, what, 5, 6 fights is that? And he's just not looked good. He's not filled anybody with confidence since then. And so I think this is a real opportunity for Hitchins to be able to put out a really good performance. There's been a back and forth between the both of them. They seemingly have that bit of spite there. I think that's nice to see. Perhaps that could bring out something different with Hitchins, but at the same time, I don't necessarily know if a Hitchins who's wanting to stand his ground and throw more powerful punches, if that's realistically a style for Hitchins that I favour him with. I just don't think he'll fight his best doing that. I think Hitchins perhaps has the makings to be a star for American boxing. I think he is somebody who does sell well and does have a decent level of eyes on him. And like I say, with Matchroom, I think he could be made into a really good fighter, but I think that he also really has to fight his fight, and he could be known as like a really crisp, sharp type of boxer that just really uses their fast hands and fast feet, and then that can become an entertaining thing about him. But I think if he tries to be somebody who's trying to be this aggressive talker who is going for stoppages and really pushing for them, I think he's going to get caught out, and I just don't think that's a good way for him to be going about it. We'll have to wait and see what type of game plan he comes into this one with, but I think there is a clear route for him to be able to beat Kambosos. It's just if he will be able to take it or not. Hitchins as a fighter, though, of course, he's got fast hands and he brings his shots back nicely. He's typically able to fight on the back foot or the front foot, and it's nice, comfortable fighting when he's on the back foot, and he does circle around quite well. He kind of can jab out of the opponent's rhythm. When he throws his jab, it is very controlling and he can shorten it up really nicely as well at the same time. So it's a really good, sharp, crisp jab, and arguably, like I say, the way that he throws out of rhythm can catch opponents out, and it's just a really good weapon of his. And other than that, he's confident. He's seemingly really confident coming into this one. I was perhaps thinking that his confidence coming into the Paro fight was not due to the Lemos fight, but I think in this, coming into this fight, he is really confident. He weaves under shots nicely. He's got solid timing. He's got a good mid-range kind of skill set. I think that's where he fights his best. He's can be there to make you frustrated. I think if it wasn't Paro that he was facing, he definitely could have frustrated other opponents much more so with that game plan, because, like I say, he was continually making Paro reach for his punches and just being a bit too out of range, and that's when he was utilizing his timing. And perhaps if he's doing that against the Kambosos Jr., then Kambosos might become a bit frustrated. Negatives about him: I don't think he's aggressive that much, and when he does try and be aggressive and he tries to, like I say, plant his feet and put a bit more power into his shots, his balance can be off and he can be made to miss. And when he does miss, he misses quite widely, and you can see that he's not processing his shots that well. When he does miss, he doesn't really realistically know what to do, and that's when he can kind of stumble over his front foot, and that's when he does look a little bit more open at times. And obviously his physicality as well really isn't anything that's that impressive. And I mean, he can definitely get put up against the ropes, and if he's not circling off, then the physicality can be a problem. Like I say, typically he does circle off well, but if Kambosos is able to put it on him from early physically, then he might be able to have success. Speak more about Kambosos: he's sharp early on, and I think he steps into his shots nicely. I think that's where He did showcase a good skill set against Wiley, where he was just stepping into them shots and really landing nicely early on and catching Wiley and even hurting him sometimes early on. And he's got a nice strong jab himself. He's got decent hand speed, decent head movement, finds his range well. I think he's comfortable at a mid range as well. So it's probably going to be a bit more of a chess match, this fight. I don't believe it's going to end in a drastic knockout, however much that both these guys say that they want to stop each other. I just don't see it happening. He's quite accurate for the most part. He's got a good chin. I think he can take a good shot, and even though he hasn't realistically faced the most powerful of punches, and Loma did stop him, he didn't stop him with a shot to the head. It wasn't a brutal knockout. It was a big body shot that was accumulated with a continuous just barrage of punches that just showcased an outsmarted skill set in which Lomachenko had. But I still believe that Kambosos has got a good chin, and he's good at sneaking in shots as well. He's good at, like I say, being explosive with his work, and when he does get in close, occasionally he'll throw a nice uppercut, or like I say, just kind of out of nowhere swing in a shot, and it can be nice and sneaky and can catch opponents off guard. Negatives about him, I think his willingness to dig deep isn't realistically there anymore. I think he can definitely become just too comfortable, and it leads him to drop his hands, and he can be discouraged, and he can be outworked, and it can just not be a nice kind of mix. And like I said, I just don't necessarily know if he's willing to dig deep anymore and really try and force it. So if it does kind of go into the later rounds, I think he could possibly become a bit frustrated or just a bit, lazy and just not realistically kind of trying to force the fight. And I think his heart might not be in it as much anymore. He can be outsmarted at the same time. So if Hitchins comes into this with a really good game plan, he can outsmart him. I think he just declines throughout the fight. I think he can load up on singular shots too much. He does cross his feet a little bit. He can be outworked, and his timing of you when you're coming in isn't necessarily the best. So even if Hitchins does miss and does miss wildly, he might not be capitalized by Kambosos. Who do I think is going to win? I think that Richardson Hitchins is going to be able to win via a unanimous decision. I think he's going to be able to continuously fight better at a mid range, and I think throughout, I think it's going to play out similarly to how the fights between Kambosos and Wiley went to an extent, where Kambosos is going to be able to land the more significant shots early on, and then Hitchins is going to grow more and more into the fight. But instead of what Wiley did, where he wasn't quite skilled enough to be able to match Kambosos, Hitchins is going to be the more skilled fighter. He's going to gain in confidence throughout the fight. He's going to possibly start off by moving around well, but he's going to plant his feet more and more. Kambosos is going to decline more and more, and Hitchins is actually going to be able to land some decent work, and then not do enough to stop him, but still do enough to be able to win relatively comfortably, probably picking up rounds 5 to 12 and then going on to win via unanimous decision. Then who he goes on to fight next, I mean, somebody like a Matthias is of course highly ranked, and that would be a good fight. But Matthias, from what I believe, is fighting Puello for that WBC title, so maybe Hitchins could go on for a unification fight for the winner of that. If not, then the IBF rankings are in a bit of an interesting position with the super lightweight division at the moment. There's nobody kind of clear standing out now that Matthias is fighting Puello. So you look about, maybe a Dalton Smith could be an option. They've been waiting for that WBC strap for for Dalton Smith, but of course, like I mentioned, that's Matthias Puello fighting for that. So perhaps Smith could be slid into another world title fight, an unexpected one against one of their other fighters' matchroom, and that could happen, and that would be a fight in which I'd be excited to see as well. If not, Teofimo Lopez, I think that could be a great fight, and I think it would be two guys in the hypes of their careers at the moment. I think it could definitely make for an exciting fight, and I mean, it was rumored to happen at one point, and maybe it could happen again now if Lopez decides he doesn't want to move up into the welterweight division. to give my prediction for one more fight which is on this card. It's not a crazily stacked card. I mean, it's got a few good names and a few names in which I'm interested to see. Olympian Dev is a name in which I'm intrigued to see again, but Mikado has just come off the card. But Andy Cruz is the fight in which I want to talk about. He's fighting Hironori Mishiro, and I believe that Andy Cruz is going to be able to win via TKO in round 5. I think Cruz is still improving and getting better with each fight. This is seemingly a final eliminator for the IBF lightweight title, and so I think he could definitely get put into a position where he goes straight into a world title fight after this fight. But it's nice to see that he's wanting to go and have at least one more challenge against a top contender before he moves on to possibly a world title fight, because there is realistically not, I mean, there isn't a rush. They're really trying to rush him, and he's kind of been delivering so far with every single fight, but there realistically isn't a rush to have, this fight and maybe another fight before he gets a world title shot. But I think Mishiro isn't a bad fighter. I could just see him being a bit too physically weak, and I could just see him getting caught out with his shots and the reactions of Cruz, and the fact that Mishiro doesn't have a strong tight guard. I could just definitely see him getting caught out with a shot and then getting dropped and just being, not being able to get up. And yeah, Cruz going on to win via that stoppage in round 5. The only kind of real questions around Andy Cruz at the moment is just seemingly his chin. I mean, he fought against Salcido, and that was a Salcido coming off a win versus Chris Colbert, and he fought really well and really impressed me in that fight. Even though he didn't get a stoppage, he had him hurt in the final round, and I mean, he got saved by the bell, Salcido. And I think Cruz really showcased a lot in that fight. Like I say, the fact that Salcido was coming off a really good stoppage, he was coming in, as a tough Mexican, and Cruz was just kind of doing what he does best, just being out of range by just that split centimeter for him to then be able to also go and throw a counter afterwards, and just using his quick hands. And he really is a really, really skilled fighter, and there was no surprise that there was such a demand for him when he did turn over. And I think Matt Drumar progressing him really well, and I think, like I say, this is a really important fight for his career, because I think it is going to showcase that he is ready for world level contenders / a world title, and possibly he'll get the fight against Muratalo, who is now IBF champion. Maybe that'll happen. I think that definitely could happen, just due to the fact that Muratalo is not really got too many other names as options for him to defend the belts. But obviously at the same time, it would be top rank work with Matchroom, so maybe unless it's on a Ring magazine card, it might not happen at the same time. So perhaps something like a Magsayo, that could happen. Magsayo obviously fought Ray Vargas and he fought Figueroa down at featherweight, and he lost both of them. He only lost via split decision versus Ray Vargas though. But since then he's been on a good run. He's progressed from super featherweight to now lightweight. He's been put in a highly ranked position, and like I say, I wouldn't mind seeing Andy Cruz get another fight before he gets a world title fight. So maybe that might happen. But, hear me out. There is another name in which, of course, everybody wants to see Andy Cruz in against, being Keyshawn Davis. Obviously, people are kind of expecting it to not quite be yet. And with everything that's been going on with Keyshawn, we're going to probably expect him to move into the super lightweight division next. But at the same time, I would love to see at this time Keyshawn Davis against Andy Cruz, because I think the fans are turning on Keyshawn Davis just after what happened this last weekend, where he really didn't do himself any good at all. He seemingly tried to cheat by missing weight, just due to the fact that he missed weight so bad. He didn't even try and cut weight. He just thought that De Los Santos would just accept the fight just as an opportunity to fight for a world title, and so he didn't even try and make the weight, which is just awful, because it is just blatant cheating at that point. And then he got shot in the foot by then, De Los Santos doing the right thing and not fighting, and then Abdullah Mason got promoted to the main event slot, and that's one of the rivals of Cruz, of Davis as well. And then what he did afterwards with Nair Albright, when his brother lost and they seemingly jumped him and all of that. I just don't feel like the fans are really behind Keyshawn anymore, and so if they really want to go out there and put on a real big fight and try and get the fans back in the good books, then this rivalry between him and Cruz is an exciting one. And so I think that's a fight which should happen at this point, because like I say, it would just get the fans back on his side. And so, perhaps that could happen now, and maybe that might be in a catchweight, if not super lightweight division. And yeah, that would be really interesting. But yeah, that is it for today's video. Hope you did enjoy. Like video if you did, need like video, subscribe if you're new, and thanks for watching.